Gyles and Camilla are here to talk through this morning's headlines. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Smashing to see you.
Let's start with what's on the front covers of most of the newspapers today, Gyles. Former Prime Minister David Cameron revealed that he was treated for prostate cancer. This was after his wife Samantha urged him to go and get tested. She was listening to an interview. You've known him for years, of course.
I've known him since the 1980s, since he was a boy. Former Prime Minister, former Foreign Secretary, good egg. His wife is listening to the radio a couple of years ago, or in fact, not that long ago. And here's Nick Jones, who we know, our friend, entrepreneur, Soho House guy, talking about prostate cancer and how important it is to be tested, and says to Dave, have you had a test? And Dave said, well, goes to the doctor, gets the test, a PSA test, which is the initial test that they have. It's kind of blood test, shows you where you are, or you likely you are to have it, as a result of which he then goes into hospital, has a scan, prostate cancer is discovered. He then has work done on it. And the good news is that the work, which was, in his case, quite focused. I mean, the development in prostate cancer research has been amazing in recent years. There are all sorts of ways of treating it from, all sorts of different ways. The one that he has focused on the area where the tumour was and seems to have destroyed it. So that's the good news. And what he is actually saying is, Nick Jones, great campaign. We know that because we've had Nick Jones here telling us how important it is. If you are a bloke, if you're black, at the age of 45, you've got to start this. Other people, age 50, you've got to start being tested. That's Nick Jones's message.
So they're trying to promote a screening programme, actually, sort of, that the government would put into place. And as you say, Nick Jones came and joined us, I think, in October, didn't he?
Yeah, he'd got no symptoms.
No symptoms
That was
at all.
the big thing that he was saying.
Let's see what he had to say.
You didn't have any symptoms or anything?
No symptoms whatsoever. So when I sort of recovered, it's a pretty simple operation now, robotic. When I recovered, I thought, this is so unfair. I was lucky that I was a private doctor. I went to have my MRI done privately. And I just think so many people aren't as lucky as me. And I just wanted to try and pass the luck I had on to everyone else. And that is why I am calling for a national screening for prostate.
Dr. Zoe was alongside him when he came in as well, and she joins us now this morning. Zoe, when you hear the impact of Nick Jones' radio interview that Samantha Cameron heard, got her husband to go, and then he got tested and he actually had some cancer, he's now thankfully cancer-free, you understand the value in having a screening programme for men, don't you?
Absolutely. I think you'd struggle to find a doctor in the land who wouldn't agree that we absolutely 100% need a screening programme for prostate cancer. So it gets really confusing then. Why don't we? And that's often my job, is to explain the reason why we don't. And it may change in the future, but at the moment, currently, PSA as a blood test is deemed to be not a good enough test for a screening test. Remembering that a screening test is to test a huge proportion of the population who have no symptoms whatsoever. If somebody has symptoms, very different story, and testing absolutely should go ahead. But this PSA test, actually, if you have a positive PSA test, 75% of people will not have cancer. If you have a normal PSA test, 15% of those people will have prostate cancer. So the test just isn't good enough, and we need a better test, and there is a call for that. The question is whether people who are identified as high risk, so as Gyles said, that's people of black ethnicity, people with a family history, also people from low socioeconomic groups, should there be a screening programme for people who are deemed high risk? In that scenario, do the benefits outweigh the risks? And that's what is currently being discussed by the National Screening Committee. And actually, they're due to meet at the end of this month. And the topic number one on their agenda is a draft proposal that they've put together as to whether there should be this targeted screening of those people who are high risk. Ultimately, what we need is a screening test that is as accurate as the tests we have for cervical cancer, breast cancer, and bowel cancer. So it is a slightly confusing one. I absolutely agree we need a prostate cancer screening programme, but we also need a programme that doesn't do harm to people in the process.
Yeah, Camilla, when there's 55,000 new cases a year of prostate cancer in men, it's hard to argue against something like that. To Zoe's point, it needs to be more accurate, but even a test of some sort which gives you an idea of where you might be, so you go and investigate further, has value.
Exactly, and Prostate Cancer UK is one of the charities the Telegraph is supporting this year in our Christmas appeal, and they are undertaking a trial with NICE and others in order to try and test out the test on a trial sample of men to see whether they can get a bit more of a grip on how accurate it is and the pros and cons that have just been pointed out in terms of whether they can nail down it actually, on the whole, doing more good things than bad things, so not causing harm, but actually making sure that those men who are above 50 predominantly. The other complication that I'm sure Zoe will speak to is the fact that some people men can have enlarged prostates and problems with their prostates which aren't cancerous. It's just a symptom of getting older, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's right. You know, the majority of men who have a raised PSA will not have prostate cancer. They might have what we call benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is normal enlarging of the prostate, plus many other causes of this as well. I think the other thing that's confusing about prostate cancer is many people who have prostate cancer, it will not spread and it will not cause death. You know, the majority of people who get prostate cancer will die with their cancer, not because of it. So another risk, another complication, which differentiates it from things like breast cancer and bowel cancer, is that some prostate cancers are best being left alone and never being discovered because of, you know, the absolute terror and harm that it causes psychologically just knowing it's there, but they're never going to actually cause any physical harm. You don't have that with many other cancers. So it's how do we identify the cancers that need to be treated because they could potentially, you know, cause disease, harm and death, and how do we identify those that should be left alone? So it's really tricky with prostate cancer. A lot of work going on, and, you know, I fully back that and support that.
But brilliant to see the former Prime Minister talking about it.
Yeah.
Yes, brilliant and marvellous for him, though I think I'm right in saying it can return. So you should keep going on with the tests, even if, as it were, the first lot has been eliminated. A few years later, it could return.
Zoe, thank you for joining us this morning. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Let's talk about the Princess of Wales. She's been out and about. She's been making a speech to mark Addiction Awareness Week. She's spoken out about addiction, and she's saying that it's time to end the fear, shame and judgment endured by people with drug, alcohol and gambling addictions. This is kind of a bit like what Diana did when she shook hands with those AIDS patients too, just to change the public's perception.
From the very beginning of her solo charitable work, Kate has talked about addiction. She's been patron of organisations including the Forward Trust and others. And she did that because when she was doing a lot of the stuff on childhood and early childhood and the problems that develop later in life, she found that addiction was a strain running through a lot of the different cases that she was being told about. And I think, really, when it comes to stigma around addiction, I've got personal experience of this because, unfortunately, my mother died of alcoholism when she was 54, so back when I was in my early 20s. And the trouble is with it is because, particularly when you're in a kind of middle-class household and my father was the local GP, it's something that you try and keep a lid on. You don't want to be embarrassed by your own parents' behaviour. A lot of it goes on behind closed doors because people look unfavourably at people who have got drink and drugs problems. You then keeping it even more secret, that just exacerbates it because it almost gives the person who's got the addiction licence to continue. There's a particular problem at the moment because as the welfare bill has shot up and post-COVID, more people have been claiming things like PIP. I'm actually going to a dinner tonight about this hosted by the Centre for Social Justice. There are concerns that the government isn't dealing with it adequately because they are giving yet more money to addicts who are just spending it on drugs and alcohol rather than rolling out treatment programmes for them.
Or dealing with the actual start.
What's the root cause of it? And
Yes.
in my mother's case, you know, if she had been a recipient of PIP, it would have gone straight down to the off licence. It wouldn't have helped. So I think we need to have more conversations in school about it. It often focuses, actually, on, like, drugs and the hard end of drugs, you know, be careful of heroin. More children in school are likely to encounter a problem drinking parent than they ever are going to encounter a parent that uses drugs. So I think we just need to have a bit more of a national conversation. And it's always a hard one to have, Giles, because the British do like to drink. The British have got a culture of binge drinking and it's been rather normalised, I think, in recent decades. So it actually masks underlying problems.
What is interesting, you talking so openly about your mother, the more we talk about it, the better it is. That prompts me to talk about my sister, who basically was saved by joining Alcoholics Anonymous. But she wasn't able to join Alcoholics Anonymous until she had hit rock bottom.
Yes.
None of us, nobody knew what to do, surrounded by a loving family, accepting of it, but eventually somebody got her into AA.
Did you know about it though, Gyles, or was it something that was hidden?
It was sort of hidden. We first became conscious of it when she used to babysit for our children when they were very small.
Yeah.
And Michelle, my wife, came back and said, I think she's smelling of alcohol again. She's looking after the children. What do you think? So it gradually became more and more obvious her life collapsed. Yeah. But it wasn't until it really collapsed that she knew she had to do something. Then she found AA, which in my experience, and I now have a number of friends who I've helped introduce to AA, really, because that becomes almost another addiction.
Yes.
You then become addicted to AA, and it's enormously helpful. And there's Al-Anon, Al-Teen, there are various other things that family members can join in. So it becomes part of the mission. What I'm saying is, two of us by chance here, this is by chance, I bet you people watching this are saying, actually, my sister, my brother, my mum, my dad.
Yes.
And it's good to talk about
Although
it.
Ipsos says 53% of adults have personal experience of addiction or know someone who has. We say that, don't we, about everyone knows somebody who's been affected by cancer. I would hazard to say everyone knows somebody who's been affected by addiction in one way or another.
And it does seem to be cyclical, unless you actually
Yes.
break the cycle.
Yeah.
It does seem to be cyclical.
Well, I think so, and also it's because habitual behaviour is passed down to children and they don't know anything else and they enter the same spiral.
Yeah.
We're going to have to leave it there, guys, for the time being. Thank you very much. Lots of
Thank
other
you.
stories that we will be
Lovely
discussing
to
when
chat
you
to you.
join us a little
hello.
bit later
Thanks
on.
for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.